Hey everyone, Michael Anthony here. Van Halen, Chickenfoot, Sammy in the Circle. But anyway, you're listening to the only podcast that is dedicated to breaking down the entire Van Halen catalog one track at a time. And the podcast will rock. Ow!
Hello, baby!
What's up, all you rockers, rockettes, and everything in between? You have come to a new edition of And the Podcast Will Rock. We are the show that dives into the catalog, the discography of one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time, Van Halen. I am your co-host, Mark Kamier. With me, as always, Corey Morissette. Corey, two things. How are you feeling? Did you beat the virus? And also, is it as hot in the Great White North as it is in the American South? Because I'm going to go ahead and say, no, it's not. There's no way.
I'll tell you what, it is pretty hot. It's 31 degrees Celsius where I am right now. I don't know what that equates to in Fahrenheit. I imagine it's
hot.
Equates
to hot.
Yeah,
it's hot.
Yeah. And I am feeling better. Thank you very much, Mark. And thank you to all the people who reached out on Twitter and wished me well in my battle with the Rona. It was kicking my ass last weekend pretty hard, but I'm on the mend, still pretty tired, but ready to get my rock on here with some good buddies and listen to some Van Halen.
There's nothing more satisfying. The medicine goes down good when you've got a healthy dose of vitamin VH. So here's to bringing you to a speedy recovery with some good old rock and roll. But you guys, I don't know if you heard it there just a second ago, but we are not alone. We have another guest, a very, very special guest with us today from Maiden A-Z, the Iron Maiden show here on the Deep Dive Podcasting Network, one of our, brother, sister channels, however you want to describe it, but also from the new Megadeth show, So Far, So Good, So Pod. I hope I got that order right. Please correct me if I did not.
Same as Eric did.
Oh boy. See, I had Eric
from out of nowhere.
Eric in my, it's anyway, but to correct me and to promote the shows and be our special guest, please welcome Jonatan. How you doing, man?
Nice to be here. First of all, doing pretty good. It's hot here too. It's not 31. It's slightly below that, but I'm in the, I guess, less great of an area, white north or something, and coming in from Stockholm now. On a Saturday night, it's nice for Van Halen. I'm thinking about that clip. There's a clip with Diamond Dave when he's sort of freebasing some kind of spoken word rap. It's Saturday night. I don't know. That, obviously I can't do it, but it's the right time. It's the right time to be on this podcast, I would say. So doing well.
Absolutely, it is.
And of course, the Megadeth podcast is called So Far, So Pod, So What, which is easy. It's so easy close. Only if you're familiar with the album So Far, So Good, So What. Then it's kind of, but it's also the only Megadeth podcast out there. And I put Megadeth podcast in the title. I kind of copped out on that one so that people, random searchers can actually
so people can actually find it and actually know what they want. That's very, very brilliant. We probably should have thought about that, but hey, what are you going to do? Cool admittedly, name, yes, it is. It's a very, very cool name. Admittedly, my knowledge on Megadeth as one of the big four of thrash is limited at best. Sorry, Dave, no disrespect. But we're happy to have you. Happy to have a Megadeth podcast amongst our ranks. That's awesome. But as a massive Iron Maiden fan, I must say it's very, very cool to get a Maiden A-Z podcaster on the show. So again, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys. And of course, that's the main pod because me and Greg are sort of busy. So we're doing the Megadeth show as a monthly magazine type thing, a monthly fanzine. It's not weekly or anything like that. So I guess first and foremost, I represent the main pod then,
Yes, there you go.
Coming in as a Maiden fan here. I didn't find Van Halen through Megadeth anyway. But I'm sure Dave Mustaine is a fan. I'm sure he must be.
Must be.
Hey, you never know. Maybe some of these guys are very steeped into all kinds of podcasts. So you never know who might grace our airwaves. Gary Sharon might even listen to our show just so he can take notes on how many times we talk about how bad Van Halen 3 is. And he's just revving up all the insults to come back at us at some point. But hey, Gary, if you are listening and you want to be on the show, we will happily have you. But we're not talking about Van Halen 3, hopefully. We're talking about something else entirely. But speaking of talking about Van Halen, before we get into the show, Corey, I believe today is a significant day, the day that we are recording this podcast. Please tell the listeners what is significant about this particular day.
Well, if there was ever a day where we were going to rig the wheel, it would have been this day, because today is the 31st anniversary for Unlawful, Carnal Knowledge, which is an album both Mark and I really enjoy. This is also our 31st episode. So the stars are kind of aligning. We're recording show 31 on the 31st anniversary of For Unlawful. Here's where we should get like a right now or a run around or a pound cake. That would be just fucking amazing. But
please.
Let's see if the wheel give it, then everything is definitely in line.
Yes, absolutely.
I guess you're going to spin the wheel. I agreed to that anyway.
Yeah, we are spinning the wheel. It's going to be by the boards. But if we were rigging the wheel, I'd be picking something from For Unlawful for sure.
Absolutely, gotta have one from the Fuck album. So I won't even bother asking you, Corey, or myself like what we want to manifest, because we just laid it out there. Give us a For Unlawful tune. We need it. But I'll go ahead and ask right here at the top before we go to. Actually, no. Before I do that, there is some other Van Halen news going on. Corey, would you please grace our listeners with some of that?
Absolutely. We'll get to the poll results on last week in just a minute, but Sammy and the Circle have started their summer tour with Michael Anthony just this past week. They're doing 8 Van Halen songs as part of their regular set. So if God bless Sammy Hagar and Michael Anthony for continuing to fly the Van Halen flag, doing 8 tracks on there. But a good friend of ours, Mark Kelsey, who's been on the show, somehow ended up backstage working with Michael Anthony's bass tech. And if you follow her on Twitter, she's got some great pictures of Mike Anthony's bass rig. She got some pics and even some shots of Sammy backstage. I guess he came backstage and danced with her a little bit too. So
they did the Cabo Wabo, she said.
Yes, you got to get Kelsey back on the show to hear all about that. How did she get, working with Michael Anthony's bass tech, and the tremendous time she had with Sammy in the Circle. But their tour has started. If you're in the continental United States, I would recommend traveling to go check them out. Mark, I think they're coming to Houston. I'm not sure how close that is to you, but you might have an opportunity in September to maybe check them out.
I can tell you straight up because my lady Christy and myself took a trip to Houston this past year to see a band play. That is a roughly 10 plus hour car trip.
That's nothing.
It wasn't nothing, but it was the show was worth it. Let me tell you that it was worth the trip. We got to see a friend of the show and guest on the show, Jeff Saunders. So that was nice. That was nice to actually get to hang with him and see the band The Midnight play. But it's a trek, to be sure. It is a trek. However, I'd be willing to make that journey for Sammy and the Circle, of course. And I would find a way. I don't know if I have the same charm and charisma as our friend Kelsey, but I try to find a way to get to the boys so that I could let them know, hey, not for nothing, but I co-host a Van Halen podcast, and I think you guys would really be into it, especially Michael. I just want to high five Michael and be like, we love you, dude. You keep doing what you do.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and Michael knows about the show because he recorded that little bit for the beginning.
That's true. He knows. So now I get to ask him. So Michael, did you ever check out the show? What do you think?
He said he
put him right there on the spot.
Yeah, he promised he was going to. So try and make that happen in September, Mark. And by all means, everybody should head to the Van Halen news desk. There's some great live clips of Sammy in the Circle this past weekend. Mike absolutely killing Unchained from Mansfield.
Yes.
That's on there. And another clip of him killing Ain't Talking About Love. So God bless you, Mike Anthony, Sammy Hagar. They're flying the Van Halen flag. They're doing 8 tracks out of 16 are Van Halen on the Sammy in the Circle tour. So that's fantastic. But Mark, before we spin the wheel tonight, should we go through the Twitter poll from last week?
We should. Let's have a listen to what the people are saying about the poll. What were the poll results?
last
I have
week.
a question also for you guys.
Absolutely. Go
Oh,
ahead.
yeah, go
I'm,
ahead.
I'm tempted to ask because this is a thing. There's a divide in between Europeans and North Americans. That how long is a long car trip? We talked about 10 hours there. That's definitely very long for most Europeans. I mean, Sweden is kind of spacious. It's kind of big, but I would say anything above 2 hours, we consider a long car trip. What about you guys? It must be more, right?
In Canada, it's much more. Canada is massive. If you're going 6 to 8 hours, it's a long car ride. I know traveling for work is usually 3 hours for me to certain towns. So that's nothing for us here. But yeah, anything over 5, 6, I think is getting pretty long.
I would say for work, Stockholmer puts a line on an hour, an hour maximum.
Oh God. I used to have like almost hour-long commutes to work, and that felt like a nightmare. So just the shorter the commute to work, the better. But I'll tell you, I used to make frequent trips from my home state to another state that was 4 hours maximum. And I got so used to that a car trip 3 to 4 hours, that's nothing to me. It's totally fine. So I don't consider that a long trip. 10 hours is long. It's a long time, especially when there's a point in the United States when you just reach just a long patch of nothing. Just nothing. Just this empty fields and plains. And if you're going out west, you're going to run into the desert. And then you really want to talk about a lot of nothing, where your existential crisis comes in full force. That's when it happens. So
makes me think of a song, "Going Out West." Tom Waits. It's about he's taking speed and he's driving out west to be himself and name his son Rex or something like that, I think, or Hannibal.
Yeah, it's that's not a fun trip unless you are just some people really love this being in the desert, the sights of the desert. I put sights in quotation because there's not a lot to be seen except vast nothingness. I know our good buddy Jeff, aforementioned Jeff Saunders, took a trip out west and a pilgrimage, if you will. So I'm sure he experienced a lot of the sightseeing of nothingness. But hats off to you, Jeff. We love you, buddy. But yeah, so 10 hours plus, even 8 hours is a stretch for me. So unless you just really enjoy car trips, I don't recommend. Just take a plane, unless the plane tickets are vastly expensive, which these days they are. And we don't have a fun, railway system like the better countries too. That's all I'll say. That we really should invest. So but that you didn't come here for travel talk, you came here for Van Halen talks. So Halen, Corey, please, let's hear some of those poll results.
All right, well, last week we did Drop Dead Legs off of 1984, and I'm happy to report that it's 94.4% What Dreams Are Made Of.
Damn right it is.
Yeah, only 5.6% This Dream Is Over. Again, a lot of people can't believe that's not 100% out of 72 votes, but it's pretty darn close. Let's get through some tweets real quick. Our good buddies at the Deep Purple podcast said, Mark, the Bat's analysis of the guitar solo was spot on. So there you go, Mark. You got an ally there. We got a new listener, Gregory Muse, who said, great show, guys. Found you a few months ago and finally caught up with all of the episodes. Keep up the great work. Oh, and to be clear, I'm a Dave guy, 100%. So there you go. Somebody who maybe besides a little closer to me than maybe to what Mark likes. Rihanna at Ray38 says, great song. Thank you very much for chiming in, Rihanna. Van Halen Dad actually said that this song is kind of like the swing version of Back in Black. Which once you hear that, you can't unhear it, right? Yeah, it is kind of a swing version of Back in Black. That was pretty good.
What a statement. Yeah, it really is. Now that I think about it, that's hilarious.
That's what we all needed, right? You already have Back in Black. You might want a swing version to go with it.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Charles Johnson says, such a great, dumb, fun song. Betty Boop and Butts. All hail Time and Dave. Yes, some of his best lyrics are in that song. Bruins fan 71 says, have not listened yet. However, what the fuck with the non 100%ers? There you go. Yeah. How do you vote down Drop Dead Legs? I have no idea. Tom, friend of the show, Armbruster, who I want to give a special shout out tonight. He just lost his uncles. We just want to say, Tom, we're thinking about you, and hopefully your uncle is gonna bless our wheel here today. We're gonna get something really cool for you.
Much love to you, Tom.
Absolutely. He says, nice to see the vote totals rising. And au contraire, Mark, when it comes to Eddie, I want all the notes, just not in the order of the first half of the From Afar solo.
Look, as I said, it's not a bad thing to get all the notes. It's just sometimes it feels a little inflated. It's fine. It's okay.
Our friend Jonathan Todd says, love this song, but one of the few times I don't think the solo suits the song. That riff, though. So again, there's someone who agrees with you, Mark, on the solo for Drop Dead Legs. And Gene Hickey says, fan-fucking-tastic song. Next time the Sam Dave lyricist discussion comes up, I see Throw My Rope, Loop-de-Loop, Nice White Teeth, Betty Boop being referenced for sure. You are absolutely right.
You're right. It's stuck in our brains, and I will be referring back to it anytime Corey insists that Diamond Dave's lyrics are always just spot on all the time. Like, my dude.
They're fantastic.
Betty Boop, loop to loop.
Throw my rope. Come on.
Roll my rope.
That's gold.
I told a friend the other day, for a perfect 10 album, not every song has to be perfect 10, It's still a perfect 10 album. In fact, if every song is a perfect 10, it might be a worse album, You might need one of those, the salty bit or, the weird little bit to get the nice whole. I think, overall, great lyrics.
That's right.
I appreciate and agree with that sentiment and that perspective. So thank you for that. Yes, that's a good outlook to have. I dare say that's optimistic, and we need more optimism here.
Yeah. I'm a cynical guy, but born optimist for some reason. Don't know why, but the combination, that's kind of.
You're trying. You're doing the best you can. We're all doing the best we can, and just with the hand you've been dealt.
The hand you've been dealt.
That's right.
Well, I also, maybe I should mention why I'm here on this podcast, except for being network buddy of yours.
Sure.
Please tell
Van Halen, right? I guess I should defend myself in front of all the people that actually know a lot about this band, and soon I'm going to be digging into a song I probably never heard before, and have opinions. So want to strengthen them a little bit, I guess. Van
You're
Halen
in good company here.
They've been around for a long time for me. I played air guitar too in Talking About Love with my cousin on canoe paddles.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
6, 7. So that song was always there. Also, I got a great reminder of that in a South Park episode where the 3 big religions come together under a new sign, which is the VH sign. So they come together under Van Halen, Islam,
good reference,
Christianity, and Judaism join up under that song too. So, but I've been sleeping on the band for the longest time. But last year there was like a chain of events which all pointed towards Van Halen. My drummer started playing in a band, and he played a lot of Van Halen in a cover band. Played a lot of Van Halen covers, and he got mad about, not mad as in angry, but he was crazy about Unchained, of course. So he asked me to, he said, I'm a guitarist as well. I play in a few bands, and I work with sound as well. So I'm in the rock scene in Stockholm a lot, and he told me to, teach yourself Unchained, at least the riff, so we can jam it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my entry way to become like a proper fan of this band. And then I met Greg. Greg totally adores this band, of course. And I started listening to Pot of Thunder. Chris from that show has been on your show and on Maiden A-Z as well. And, all those things came in line. And also another guitarist friend of mine who I got to know through the podcast, a massive Van Halen guy. And he's on a high level of playing too. He's a touring hard rock guitarist. So there were so many people that I could trust that pointed me towards Van Halen, and in particular Fair Warning, which is pretty much the only album I'm versed in, and love that record to bits. But I told Chris this when he guested us, that as I got older, when I discover a new band, if I love an album, I'm not instantly, grabbing the rest of the discography as I did when I was a teenager. 12, 13, I was only buying Iron Maiden, Metallica, and so on. So I've been stuck on Fair Warning. And at first I asked you guys, can we do a track of that? But then there was this wheel, and I figured it's actually more fun. To be honest, it's more fun to come in.
And Jonatan, you can confirm, you're seeing it right in front of you, that the wheel is in fact real. Some people still don't believe us.
Oh yeah. I was wondering. I thought it was as fake as the Bozo pewter, to be honest. There we go.
Nope, it's there. It's real. We've primed it. I am so glad we got a couple of those practice spins out of the way. You guys don't want to know what it landed on when those practice spins. So let's just hope the wheel is merciful. But that's awesome, man. I love that this is where your journey has taken you through the not just Van Halen, but just the like rock music of a past generation, man. And if I can, and I understand what you mean about not instantly going towards other albums because one album in particular from a band impacted you so much. And it's like, I don't want to leave it. It's like, it's almost like this is home. I don't want to leave home.
This is home. This is Main Street.
Change. Nicely done. Nicely done.
Love that song.
Love that. But if I may, I would highly recommend at the very least Van Halen's 1 and 2 as a back-to-back, because as far as I'm concerned, it's one giant album.
I listened to two the last summer because I knew Greg then, and that's his summer album, Always 2. And he told me, go for it in July when it's the hottest. You should go for Van Halen 2, and then you can leave Fair Warning on the shelf for a month and hit that one. But of course, I've heard it. I've listened to 1984 a fair bit too. So I mean, but I just like compared to what I know about bands like Maiden or Sabbath, I know nothing about this band.
Which is that's fair for you now. So I mean, I'm learning a little bit listening through your show as well. So and also I'm pretty much like all covering nerd in hard rock anyway. So of course Van Halen. Have to feel myself in on that.
Well, you're doing exactly kind of what we set out to do when starting this show. We just we're a couple of fans that love Van Halen. It's like, let's start a podcast and talk about it. Maybe if we reach an audience, we can show our love to other people who may not be as familiar with this band before, and perhaps our show can help them explore the catalog. And I'm happy to say we've done it. We've heard from some people, and they've reiterated that sentiment, and now we have you here as our guest reiterating as well. So that's awesome. We're doing our job, but I want to make it very clear, you guys, we're not experts. We're not musical historians. So before you attack us in the emails and Twitter telling us over and over and over again that we're blowing steam out of our asses, that's fine. But it's our steam and it's our asses. And we're just humble fans talking about a band that we like. Sometimes the songs are great, sometimes not so much. But I think with this overwhelming positive energy, Jonatan, you are bringing forth some optimism my way, and I'm feeling it. So I think the wheel is going to be good to us. It's an anniversary day, in fact. But before we spin it, one last thing. As I mentioned earlier, Corey and I have already stated what we want because of the significant day. But is there a particular track that you want to manifest, you want the wheel to bring forth so that you can talk about? Is it a song from Fair Warning, or would you like to hear something from For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge since it's an anniversary? What do you think?
Off the top of the dome, Top Jimmy. Don't know why, but that's what I want.
All right.
I'm here to get something that I don't know. I'm sure that's going to happen, because just looking at it statistically, it's an overwhelming chance that's the case. But if it's anything I know, Top Jimmy would be fun. I like that song. It's a great song.
That would be fun. And as the band once said, everybody wants some. And I want some too. Corey, I want you to do me a favor and spin that wheel for us.
Yes, sir. Let's give it a few shuffles here. And take it away, Sammy.
Here we go!
Oh, is it going to be a For Unlawful song? It is.
It is.
Oh, in and out from For Unlawful.
Stars align.
That is amazing. On the 31st anniversary of For Unlawful and our 31st show, and we spun In and Out from For Unlawful.
Not the song from the album that I was really, really hoping for. However, I'll take it.
John, do you have any? Have you heard For Unlawful?
Don't think so. So I mean, those three albums I mentioned are the ones that I can actually navigate around. I might have heard it, but it's not registered in my head. So chances are, which was probably going to be the case anyway, that this would be the first time I hear this track. I don't have any memories anyway pointing otherwise.
Awesome. Well, it's kind of a down and dirty track. Hopefully you like this one. For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, named by Sammy Hagar when he found out that was an acronym that was used way back in olden times, that begat the word fuck. He just wanted to call an album Fuck because that sounds cool, right? It was released June 17th, 1991, recorded at 5150, as most albums were, produced by Andy Johns and Ted Templeman.
Of course.
It's triple platinum. I think pretty close to quadruple platinum here. Hopefully this episode will help push it over the edge and get it to 4 million copies sold. There were some big titles released off this one, Mark. If you remember, Pound Cake, Top of the World, Right Now, Run Around were all pretty big songs.
I do. In my youth, this was, and I'm dating myself a little bit, but this was the album of Van Halen that was very, very prominent in my youth because, by the time it came out, I was a youngster and I was finding my way through Van Halen. Now, of course, the radio, back when we were listening to FM radio before it was whatever it is now, the radio would play classic Van Halen songs all the time. So it wasn't that I was ignorant to the catalog of Van Halen at the time, but For Unlawful was the album that was out. That was the album that was sort of the Van Halen sort of soundtrack to my youth at that point, with songs like Pound Cake, with songs like Right Now, Top of the World. That was just, those were my jams. So I have both a nostalgic love for the album, and then I have just an appreciation just for what it is and where it lies within Van Halen's discography. So I do know this song as well, In and Out. It's not my favorite from the album, but I enjoy it. So I'm really excited to hear this.
Cool. And this is 1991, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah, I might have some questions for you guys about that later, but I guess, we're dying to get into the song first, I guess.
Yes, 91, the year before I graduated high school.
Oh boy.
That's how old
I'm really dating myself now.
All right. Here we go. Here's a little In and Out from 1991's For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge.
Liking it so far. This sounds cool. Instantly getting into the guitar nerdy bit of it, and I haven't heard Eddie play like this before. It reminds me a little bit of early Dave Murray, actually. Fittingly enough from Maiden, which is a much less technical approach, but very singing. Those bends are like almost like a vocal melody right from the top. Very engaging, and I like the airiness of the drum beat too. There's a lot of space in the drums, so we're off to a good start.
Oh, I 100%.
Yeah, this is
this song.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's like what a way to kick this song off, man. It just starts off as a banger, right.
You're like howling wind,
It does, and I love me a good guitar howl. The dive bombs and the guitar howls. I love them.
Me too.
And the production on this album, I think really stands out for me. I love how this album sounds. And you mentioned the kind of the space in the drums there. You really get that separation kind of from everything. It sounds very big. I really thought Ted Templeman, Andy Johns killed it on the production of this album. And after OU 812, a lot more synths on that album. This one is really kind of a return to rock and a return to guitars. And you get a lot of fucking killer guitars right at the beginning of this track.
Yep.
I produce myself, so I'm familiar with Ted Templeman, and I should be sure about this. This was his return, and he hadn't been in the band or working with the band since the Roth era.
1984. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's something I do a little bit by trade. So always when I listen to songs, production comes to mind, and you hear the 90s sound in the drums here, but in a good way. That kind of the beefiness of it is a little bit. It's more dry if you go back to early 80s or 70s, and this is a little bit more saturated, but with that space in the actual beat, the way he plays it works a charm.
Perhaps that's why they got Ted to come back as a way of returning back to the sort of the classic rock sort of sound that Van Halen. Not to say they didn't have it beforehand without Ted, but it's like we need your touch for this one because we're trying something new, but we're going back to a familiar form. That's just my guess. But again, I'm no historian, so I don't know for sure.
I did study music history, so if you want to give someone shit, you can give it to me if I get something wrong.
I mean, we had Eric Sinich from the Van Halen news desk on the show, so it's like if you're gonna throw any shade at us about that, talk to him. He's the historian, the literal Van Halen historian.
If you get shit wrong, just call me out.
All right, let's keep it.
They will.
All right, Sammy's killing it, Mark. Like vocally, I can see it getting ready. Like he's top of his game. Like on this album, 1991, Sammy was sounding fucking amazing, and lyrically, I kind of like where he was going because I'm in debt. I'm always broke. A tank of gas costs $500 where I live now. So kind of a timely track for the
same here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's making a statement both lyrically and vocally. Just I mean, it's like in case you forgot, I'm Sammy Hagar. Here you go.
Killer verse. I am familiar with Montrose, so I am familiar with Sammy, but not in Van Halen. Not really. I haven't listened to that a lot, and I'm surprised on how right it sounds. It doesn't sound out of place whatsoever.
Exactly.
Completely right.
Not to say that the Roth era of Van Halen sounds wrong. Please do not.
No, I mean right.
Like
sounding like that is right.
Yes, exactly. But I mean that's kind of my whole point. With everyone knows at this point that I'm more pro Sammy than I am pro Roth, just in the vocal department, just as singers. And I completely agree with that sentiment. It just sounds right. With Sammy at the helm.
I mean, part of my epiphany last year or 2 years back on this band, Van Halen, was realizing that Diamond Dave was a genius all along. And he just had us fooled with all that gigolo stuff that he was saying.
That's right.
And I stand by that. I think he knows what's going on in our room. He's got social awareness on a superhuman level, I think.
100%. 100%.
It's
rock and roll.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, when you have this preconceived conception of a guy and it's Vince Neil, and then it turns out to be a genius instead. Yeah. Imagine, the switch that happens in your mind at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I can't stop quoting him. I quote him all the time.
Great comparison, because I think a lot of people who don't know a lot about Diamond Lee Roth might put him in the Vince Neil camp of, the out of shape singers who can't carry a tune anymore.
Rock.
Yeah. But no, Dave is fantastic in his own right, but Sammy kills it on this entire album. This is, I think, vocally my favorite Sammy performance is this album when he was with the band. And we got a killer chorus coming up here. Let's keep her going.
Do it.
Sorry, I was getting so into the song, I forgot to pause.
Yeah, me too. I was hesitating whether or not to stop it, actually, at this point. I was just guitar nerding a little bit here. I picked up the guitar quickly and found that this is it seems to be E standard, which I realized Unchained wasn't when I thought myself that song. It's a drop D song.
Yep.
And which is quite rare for, in 1981 is fair warning, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So in 1991, it would be more normal to be, starting to use those kind of tunings. But this was like normal E. But I heard some really cool chord voicings from Eddie in the chorus. Really, it's kind of strange, jazzy flavor to it, which is nicely, tucked into this overall just rock and roll vibe of the song. So that's the small, the details, that make this band very good for me. Like they make them stand out. That they don't have to have I like bands like Mr. Bungle too, but they don't have to do that. They don't have to switch to a completely different thing and then just to show that they can. Instead, he tucks it in there, hides it into this rocker, really weird chords in the middle of the chorus there. Something I noticed immediately. So
that's something Eddie's pretty. Yeah, he's pretty fantastic about doing a lot and making it seem like he's not doing much of anything, but he is. There's a master at work in there. I was just so wrapped up in the groove of the rhythm section that it took me a minute to realize it's like, oh, Eddie's back there very prominent, but he's kind of doing his own thing, but it's still flowing, it's still vibing with how the song is structured, because he structures the song essentially. Like that's how Van Halen seems to work. There's a lot he's doing kind of back there, ornamentation, if you will, with the riffage and just the strong rhythm section, just keeping the drive going. Michael's it just sounds like he's just taking the bass for a walk and doing what he's doing. But and then not to be outdone
too, the vocals.
Yeah, and then there's Sammy. Sammy's just like really holding it together. Well, I would say Sammy and Alex both are really holding it together, but Alex won't be outdone. He's like, I'm still going to give you my special groove, my special flavor. But
when you have that lineup, Pantera, Black Sabbath, it's a classic rock lineup, sort of. When you have a lead singer that doesn't play anything and you have one guitarist. When you have that lineup, you got to be full on all four fronts. Otherwise, you're going to be able to tell, and you should probably be a power trio instead and get rid of that guy. I'm a big Pantera fan, so I believe they do that too quite well. In terms of moving all the four corners forward, not necessarily at an equal speed, but at an equal quality. And that's when you were talking just now, I realized, I was into that and that and then that and then that. So it's a lot to take in on the first listen, but it's also pretty damn good so far. It's not because I have something super important to say. I just need a little bit of time before I think it's a guitar solo kicking in now. This is coming up. So
the second half of it.
Yeah. All right. Now I just needed a few seconds here, but I guess I could echo that. I'm surprised about Hagar here. I'm really surprised. I always liked him. I always thought he was a great singer, and as far as Dave goes, he's not a great singer, but he's an amazing front man. Dave Mustaine in Megadeth could learn a lot from him, because he's pretty shit at fronting a band live, to be honest. While he's good on records, I think he's got his weird red voice, which you might or might not like. But for me, having worked with bands and stuff, for me the frontman part is more important actually than being an incredible singer, because it's still rock and roll, and I was always very happy with what Dave did. in terms of range or rhythmic aspects and all that. But Sammy is a better singer. I agree with you there, Mark.
You heard it.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a bit better, but it doesn't really matter when it's rock and roll, though. That's not what you should measure on. But still,
All right, let's finish off the solo here, then we can get your thoughts on what Mr. Van Halen's accomplishing here. All right, Mark, your thoughts.
A couple of times there are moments when I think Eddie might venture off into cult of personality solo moments where all the notes all at once, not feeding into the song. However, he does not do that. Instead, he gives you all the precise notes that are needed for this song, for the solo. The solo is serving the song. This is a perfect representation of it because, I mean, at no point does the song lose momentum. You're not distracted by, obviously the solo is the forefront. So you're listening to that specifically. That's where your brain is, but it's not so intrusive that it's taking away from everything else happening because you still have Alex, you still have Michael holding down. You even still have Sammy throwing in a few kind of I don't want to say Roth level sort of, howls and little like sort of he's not doing that. He's being Sammy and he's just making sure you remember he's still there. Because
percussive vocals. Hetfield has has Tom G. Warrior and Celtic Frost has his ooh. And apparently then Hagar has his what was it? Oh, hey, whoa, something like that. Part of the show. He's got his perfect sort of like high register sort of howls in a good way. Dave has his howling too, but his are more specific. This, however, does not. None of that distracts from the fact that Eddie is giving you just this rip roaring solo that fits the song, and that's what he does best, man. Even if it's not the most intristic, or I'm sure that's whatever the word is, like if it's not the most amazing solo in the world, he's still doing it when he does it best. He's doing it to serve the song. I feel like this solo absolutely serves the song in every possible way. Corey, what do you think?
Absolutely agree. Love this solo. I wanted to ask both of you though, because you're both guitar players. This was first album Eddie recorded without his trademark Marshall, which got him through recording early stuff all the way through the Van Halen one, all these later albums. But the Marshall was starting to fade at this time. So they also his PV was kind of in the prototype stage here, but he recorded a lot with a Soldano amp on this as a guitar player. And Eddie was like married to that Marshall. He loved that thing. Now you're going into recording a new album with a new amp. What are your thoughts on the guitar tone and maybe having to give up a beloved piece of equipment that is so instrumental to your style and your sound?
I'll let you go first there, Mark, but I'm just going to comment on the actual solo before that. Just my 2 cents on it is that it started off sort of like a gasoline and an oily, hard rock solo. I was talking about Dimebag just now, or Pantera, and I felt a little bit of that kind of more attitude, more so than, being a Mozart, which he can also do, as your listeners know. But then at the latter half of the solo, they switch chords like motherfuckers. This you can swear on this pod, right?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
They switch chords like motherfuckers at that point. I think like at least 2 times per bar. They switch chords, and he probably must have been his idea. Mark, you said that he's the key arranger guy of this band.
Usually.
Eddie. Yeah, so I'm guessing he's just like, okay, I'm going to throw in that to contrast the gasoline part, which worked great. This is a cool way to do it's sort of like one man doing 2 jobs in one guitar solo, I would say.
Mm-hmm. As far as the amp goes, there may be a subtle, and I'm sure producers or extreme guitar enthusiasts might be able to tell you the subtle differences, but there's probably like a subtle difference in tone based on what we're used to hearing from Eddie as far as his guitar playing. But honestly, sometimes you just chalk that up to how the production quality is. So sometimes if you have a producer that's going to mix it a certain way, to me, even with a new set of amps that he's recording on for this album, he still is able to maintain his signature tone. Like when I listen to any song from this album, it's like, yeah, that sounds like Eddie, because
It's
the
in
man
the
just
fingers.
it's in the fingers. He's got tone in his fingers, tone of the gods, if you will. And he once you find your sound, and this is very hard. I'm sure Jonatan, I'm sure you can attest to this. It's very hard to find your own signature sound from the guitar and be able to stick with it. A lot of bands go most of their careers without it, because they're just like, well, it's either going to sound like me or it's just going to sound like it's supposed to say. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say
But Eddie,
bands. Sorry, yeah, I'll let you finish first.
oh, I was just going to say, like, Eddie found his sound real early, and it's hard, and just because of the way he plays, and it's the way that he's his particular way he likes to do things, he made that sound work. So even if it's a new amp, it's still Eddie. It still sounds like Eddie to me anyway.
Right. Yeah. For me, the thing is, I got interested in sound, as I think many producers or front of house engineers and monitor engineers, they get introduced by actually dialing in your amplifier. My Marshall, actually I played a 5150 back those days, and I didn't mention that for me, Eddie's rhythm sound was always something I went for, even not being a Van Halen fan, because I just liked it. There's a few out there. You have the treble heavy, kind of almost screechy Tony Iommi rhythm sound, and then you have the scoped Hetfield sound without no mids in there. And none of them really worked for me. They didn't work for my fingers when I played. I liked those guitarists, but they didn't work for me, So quite early on, actually, Eddie's sound was the sound I wanted. And I find it's pretty 12 o'clock, actually. It's quite even. It's not that, extreme. He adds some sonic flavors with the Phase 90 pedal, for example. But overall, I think he could plug into anything, to be honest, and make it sound like Eddie. Because it's not a complicated sound, not really. Everything he's doing is weird tricks, like intro to Mean Street. What the hell is going on? It's just like playing drums on the guitar somehow. So yeah, I mean, I don't think you can stop that guy. No. Not really. It doesn't matter what you plug into. And for me as a guitarist, I'm more interested in the holistic thing, how the band sounds. So for me, it's okay to, suddenly get a new amp. Usually I can work around it. Just you might have to give soundcheck another 10, 15 minutes to find where you want to dial the mids and stuff. But yeah, all in all, I think it probably wasn't a challenge for him to switch gears at this point, but maybe a little bit in terms of sentimental values and stuff, that he was in love with his old amp and so on. But then it could also be like a fresh new start or something, So I think you should switch things up now and then.
It's a testament to his ability to, as a guitar player, that, as you say, like, it didn't matter what he plugged into, because he's going to make it sound like him. Is like, because the amp does not a guitar player make. It is if you are relying on the way your amp sounds to distinguish how you sound as a guitarist, not even just how it sounds coming out of the amp. It's like, if you rely on that, then you're not really, I don't know. It just sort of, in my opinion, kind of discredits a little bit. But Eddie, on the other hand, is like, no, I know how to play, and I know how to make this sound the way I want it to sound, or at least because I'm playing it. And there's plenty of, I'm sure Jimi Hendrix probably, it didn't matter what amp he used. It's like, no, it's going to sound like Jimmy. It's going to sound like, there are various guitar players where who they are based on how they sound. And would you know that they're not using the same amp twice? Probably not, maybe, depending. But I mean, it's all about your playability, and it's just the way it's you just find your tone wherever you can. And
Yeah.
Sounds to me like Eddie just knew how to find it.
On your previous note too, a lot. You're right. I can attest to that. Most bands don't find any identity in their sound. It's not like they go about with a guitar tone that has no identity, but they steal an identity from another.
Yeah, there you go.
And I think I kind of tried to pull a fast one on everyone by taking it from Eddie while I wasn't listening to his music. I was listening to his EQ and all that kind of technical stuff back then. But I mean, even as a rhythm player, it's unmatchable. I would say you can't get that sound even by buying all the stuff he had, the actual stuff he had. You can't get that sound anyway. I think no one will be able to.
Well said. Let's keep her going.
It all depends how you see it. It's a burn or an opportunity. One thing for certain, you get nothing free. Another man doesn't owe somebody something. No way to get free and clear.
That was a pretty cool move, actually.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, cool move. Because I was feeling for the first time in this listening session that the song was getting a little bit pumped out after the solo. I didn't particularly like that bridge bit they did. Felt very stock to me, just random. But then when the full tempo kicked, it was already pretty cool. And now with that trick in mind, I already forgot about that transition that was from the solo back to the song. Not very strong. But this is my only complaint so far. Vocals still kicking ass, basically.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
No one can play a ride cymbal like Alex did there.
Oh, I know.
I was gonna make a note about that. It's just like, man, he is riding that ride, but in like such a good way. And there we have them fading off into the sunset as Van Halen is one to do. You would think they would incorporate a lot more sort of arena rock stops at the end of their songs, but not so much. They like the fade out. So I respect it.
Would you be surprised? On that tour, they only played the song 13 times.
I would be surprised. I think that's kind of a shame because I feel like this is a banger.
What about subsequent tours? Have they played it on latter album tours?
Nope. Only on the 91 tour, 13 times. If you actually want a live version of it on the live album, Live Right Here, Right Now, they have a version of In and Out on there. And from what I remember, it pretty much cooks as well. But I was kind of shocked by that because I think Man on a Mission is the only other song that they hadn't really played off that album. But I tell you, if Sammy and the Circle are looking for maybe some gems from For Unlawful to break out on their current tour, I wouldn't mind hearing a little In and Out.
Ooh,
13 times is a curious number of gigs playing a song.
Yeah,
it's almost like it was canceled for some reason. They didn't feel it or something. 13 times is really strange. 30 is the 31 reverse, right?
Oh, there you go.
Well, I mean that's I see what you did there. It's fun, but we've talked about how many times certain songs get played on their tours that we can look up, and sometimes it's kind of a precocious number, and we've talked about that maybe because even at this point, even in '91, Van Halen had so many bangers and so many hits that maybe you just kind of have to let some songs go to the wayside unless you're just going to play a 4-hour set, which, as much as they probably would claim that, oh yeah, we should totally do that, they're not going to do that. Nobody's going to do that because that's a very, very long time and they have a lot of songs. So eventually you have to start making cuts. And perhaps after a while it's like, okay, well, we played that song 13 times. All right, let's throw another one into the rotation, keep it fresh. Maybe they just got sick of playing. I don't know. It's sometimes bands are tricky about that.
I'm going to even interrupt you and ask you because I need to know, how are they about set lists? Are they rigid? We have a tour set list and you switch one song or two, or are they more of the fluid kind of band that, could throw in, could exchange 4 or 5 or 6 songs during the tour?
Well, I know during the Sammy era, when it came to kind of whatever Sammy song they did, they were pretty fluid. Or if they were throwing in a cover, they'd have like a cover slot, and some nights they do, Won't Get Fooled Again by The Who, or they would change that one out. But I think pretty rigid when it came to the kind of the standard Van Halen stuff.
Okay, yeah, because you see that sometimes in Maiden that they put up a song from the new record and they play it for not 13 shows but like 2 shows, and then it's like, no, not feeling it, can't do that song. And then they replace it by probably Rothschild, always Rothschild. But, I don't know the modus operandi. I don't know the modus operandi of the Van Halen boys here, but, I guess most bands in the semi-classic rock era, which I would say, 70s, 80s or something, I think most of them were pretty rigid with the sets. They didn't do like jams or, they didn't go Grateful Dead on it or anything like that.
Oh, thank God. But no offense to Grateful Dead fans, but I if I'm not mistaken, Corey, I think you can fact check me a little bit. During Sammy's time, I don't think he was very keen on doing Roth tunes. Am I right?
Yeah, he wasn't a big fan of doing them. Like they would do Jump pretty much every show. I think that was the one. Ain't Talking About Love was another one they did quite a bit. But yeah, they certainly did more Sammy songs. He'd only do like 2 or 3 Dave tunes on tour.
If you like Ain't Talking About Love and you haven't heard Sammy do it live, you should, because it's awesome. It makes the song so much better than it already was. Yeah, I said it.
Will do. Interesting challenge.
I'm speaking to everyone out there. It's fine. But yes, do it.
But Mark, we got a piece of business to take care of here. We got to vote on In and Out from For Unlawful.
We do. Okay. Well, then we're going to put him on the spot because you're our guest. 1 of 10. Would you consider In and Out from For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge What Dreams Are Made Of? Or for you, was this track, was the dream over?
And here's a clenched fist. Which way is it going to turn? Yep, like it's not my new favorite Van Halen song or anything. I felt it lost a little steam after the guitar solo, but overall, I'm very impressed by how good they sounded in '91 with this lineup. Surprised even, I would say. So definitely, this could be the material for some dreams in the future.
There you go. Some nice dreams, some sweet dreams, all the pleasant dreams you can think of for our guest. So then I throw it to Corey. Corey, is In and Out in for the dreams or out because the dream is over for you?
I always really dug this track. This is one of my standouts from For Unlawful. It's not my favorite cut on the album, but the band sounds great. The production is top notch. I actually really like that transition mid verse. When Mike and Alex really kind of get into it and really jump that up a little bit mid verse, I think is fantastic. Lyrically, this song worked for me. Sammy sounds amazing. Guitar solo was top notch. Absolutely what dreams are made of. I'm so glad we spun this one on the 31st anniversary of For Unlawful, because and this is a great example of this album. Like, there's maybe 3 songs on here that are completely terrible, but there's 8 absolute bangers, and this is one of those 8. I'm very glad we got this one here tonight, which leaves the contrarian Mark Kameyer. What do you think, Mark? In and out, For Unlawful. Is this what dreams are made of, or is this dream over?
Well, I'm nothing if not contrary. But just not this time, because I've mentioned before, I this is one of my favorite Van Halen albums. It was very prominent when I was a wee lad, so naturally it's ingrained into me. And this is one of the bangers, as Corey said. If there are 3 duds, there's at least 8 awesome ones. This is one of them. Down and Dirty, In and Out. I don't really have a lot to say about it, other just to reiterate what my co-hosts have talked about. This is just a good track. I talk a lot about what you want in a good, just banging Van Halen track, and I feel like this one checks all the boxes, and especially the box that I in particular really love, which is letting Sammy just do his thing, just do his vocal thing. People need to realize that, and I'm sure you do. I'm sure lots of people, it's been enough time, people know that Sammy Hagar is a fantastic vocalist, but it bears repeating, especially when the Van Halen talk comes into play, because everyone likes to throw in the Dave versus Sammy conversation. It's like, let's not do that. Let's just appreciate what it is. However, I should reiterate that you guys really need to give it up to Sammy when he is laying it all out there. And this is one of those tracks where he really is doing some of the most. But that is not to take away from the rest of the band. Like I said, the rhythm section of Michael and Alex is solid. What a solid groove that they have pretty much consistently throughout the song. And then Eddie, need I say more? That solo, even if you weren't digging the rest of the songs for whatever reason, that solo is fantastic. That solo just really brings it in together. Sometimes a solo can save the song that we're not so much digging. This is not the case. This solo just brings the song up. It elevates it to a new height, I think. Yes, In and Out from the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge album is truly a banger. I'm so glad we spun this.
What is it about? Is it about sex? In, out? Or at the end of the song, I thought he said something about you got to even the score or something like that. So then I thought, is it about like a personal hustle or something? You know, I don't know. First, I thought
it seems like it's it seems like it's a money thing. Like it's sometimes you're broke, sometimes you're in, sometimes you're out. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I figured at the end, but before that, I just went by the preconceived notion that Hagar is a bit of a perv, isn't he? He's been
in comparison to
well, okay, that's a good point.
So, but hey, it's all subjective. Someone's interpretation of this could be like, oh, it's totally about sex. It's about paying for sex and being too broke to pay for it. I don't know.
I think it's about money.
We'll go with that.
Yeah,
it's definitely about money, but I'm sure there's people out there going like, all the songs by Van Halen are about sex. Just like my whole thing about every Nine Inch Nails song is about sex, and I'll die on that hill alone probably, but it's fine.
That
I
might
like
be
Nine Inch.
True, actually, Mark, that might be true.
It is true.
They all have that sound. They all have that sound, like 90s sex, like dark sex or something like that. Sometimes it's off-putting.
Is there any other kind of sex?
Well, again, I'm gonna stop talking here.
but this isn't Nine Inch Nails talk. Perhaps that's another podcast for another day and another audience. But this is Van Halen talk, and we have just covered In and Out from the Fuck album on this pristine day of recording, the 31st anniversary, our 31st episode. Corey, man, we've got it seems we talked a little bit off air about that. It doesn't seem like we've been at it this long, but and there's still so much more to go. There's still so many tracks left to cover, and we have just barely scratched the surface of it. But it feels like we've been doing it for a little bit of time. How do you feel about that?
90 tracks left on the wheel. We're about a third of the way through, so still feeling pretty good. And this wheel still works magic. We didn't, and I know I've been slacking on posting the wheel spins. I'm posting this one so that people believe us. We actually spun the For Unlawful song on the 31st anniversary of For Unlawful. But yeah, feeling great. I thought we had a good one tonight. I thought John did a fantastic job. And by all means, let us know those podcasts that you're on again there, my friend.
Yeah, we got Maiden A to Z. That's a, what do you say in English? Dash Z, you know?
A to Z. A to Z.
I don't know. Yeah, A to Z or A to Z if you're American. And my co-host is actually American. And then So Far, So Pod, So What with Greg DiPasquale, who was on that terrible song you did together a while back.
Poor Greg. We'll have you back.
How many say I? That was the title. You know the title. Yeah. But I want to thank you guys too at this is a particular thing, because you introduced me to this album in a way you couldn't get a more royal introduction to a rock album than this, you know. So it's quite inspiring actually to hear this track, you know, outside of the rock and roll podcasting and Van Halen world. So thank you guys. You know, I'm probably gonna get some good ideas coming, you know, the forthcoming days.
Awesome.
From this experience, yeah.
That's great, man. Well, we're happy to have you, and I'm glad that we could provide at least a small service of more Van Halen introduction to you through this episode. That's what it's all about. If you want to plug your social media references so the people can find you, where can the people find you?
Maiden A-Z pod in one word. On Twitter, that's the handle. On Instagram, same thing. On Facebook, it's just a closed group. So I guess you got to be a bit of a listener or a nerd to want to join that discussion. It's called Maiden A to Z Friends of the Beast. And then we got Maiden A-Z pod in one word at gmail.com. For So Far, So Pod, So What, it's those words in one word at gmail.com. And I think So Far, So Pod on Twitter, you know, it's pretty new. It's pretty fresh, but I think it is. Yeah. And also, I mean, it's on the same network anyway, the incredibly nice and ever rad Deep Dive Podcast Network.
Yes, absolutely. I'm joining that Facebook group. You just wait. Corey, where can the people find you, and where can they find the show if they don't know already?
They can find me at CD Morset on Twitter. They can find this show at Podcast Will Rock on Twitter, and podcastwillrock.com, where we got some merch. We got all of our old episodes up on there. You can find me on two other shows. One of them on the Deep Dive Podcasting Network here, Backtracks Aerosmith Revisited, where we're breaking down the whole Aerosmith catalog and coming up with the ultimate Aerosmith mixtape. So that's a lot of fun. Me and John Mariano are doing that. And we launched a new show, Backtracks Theme Music, all your favorite movie music.
Oh, good topic.
Yes, we're having a lot of fun with that one. We're only two shows in, but we've already spun, or not spun. We're not spinning any wheels or rolling any dice on that one. We're just bringing forth our favorite movie music, and it's been an absolute blast. You can find us there on Twitter as well at BT Theme Music. Mark, where can the fine folks find you?
You can find me at Mark the Bat on Twitter and Instagram, ranting about so many different things. You see what I did there, Corey? I said rant.
Yep.
So
there used to be a show called Rantings of a Maniac, if I remember.
Yes, it's still up there. If you want to catch me ranting about weird, nerdy subjects, go to Rantings of a Maniac podcast at the Feeding the Monster podcast feed. Gone but not forgotten. Well, it's not really gone. Our buddy Jeff Saunders is keeping it alive. So you're doing the Lord's work over there, Jeff. Thank you. But I don't know. I'm thinking, here's an exclusive. I've had conversations with our buddy Mariano, and I'm thinking Rantings of a Maniac might have to come back. So in some capacity, it might have to come back. Don't know if John will have the time to help me with that, because he's busy doing 2 Backtrack shows and a lot of them. So we'll just we'll see. We'll see how things go. But catch me there at Mark the Bat. At Podcast Will Rock there on Twitter. Go to our website, buy our merch, help us out, help keep the lights on, keep the airwaves moving so that we can keep delivering good, wholesome podcast episodes. And hopefully, much like we did with our guest today, give you an introduction, like a further introduction into the catalog of Van Halen, because that's what it's all about. We are humble fans. We're not rock historians. We're just fans who love the music, and we want to help spread the good word of Van Halen in some capacity. And I feel like we do pretty good at that. That's the show. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, share with your friends. I'm sure you got friends who are Van Halen enthusiasts. They need to hear the show. Spread it so that Michael Anthony will definitely hear us. And, maybe he'll want to join. Maybe he'll have some conversations to be had. That would be awesome. It's all up to you guys, and it's all up to us to keep bringing you, and the podcast will rock, and we will rock you later.